What's up, you guys, and welcome to the Squared Post Podcast. I'm your host, Emily Plessy, alongside Daniel Jetty here, and we're going to be talking about the news in pro wrestling. We're going to be talking everything in pro wrestling, and we're going to start right now with the AEW. And Dan, so let's start talking about Dynamite here and start. Yeah, we were we were saying about like how John Moxley is coming back this week. So where do you think is that going to go? Do you think he's going to be a heel, or where do you see that going?
Well, first of all, I just want to say I'm happy John Moxley seems healthy and happy. That's the number one thing. And I'm glad he got his life straightened out, especially because he is a new father. But at this point, I don't think it's feasible to turn him heel. I know that's where they were kind of going before he had to take his hiatus. But at this point, it's not feasible. Like he is getting cheered everywhere they go. So at this point, I would keep him face. And an interesting thing that is Danielson's a heel now. So they can still do Danielson versus Moxley in the same way they envisioned, except they'll have to tweak it to a face Moxley and a heel Danielson. And one of the ideas I was thinking of was that they could have Moxley be the gatekeeper of AEW, and then Danielson be the guy that comes in and thinks because he has success everywhere else that he can just walk in and take whatever he wants.
Yeah, and I agree 100%. And also, Cody is going to be coming back this week, which is going to be interesting because he is a free agent. So we're going to find out what is going to happen with that. Where do you see that going? Do you see him going in a rumble, or?
I actually don't think he is going anywhere. Like ever since the news broke last night that he was a free agent, I've been trying to think of like where this could go. And one of my theories, I'm not saying this right. No one knows what's in Cody Rhodes' head besides Cody Rhodes. But I think Cody wants a summer of punk moment. He wants
Yeah,
to be known as the free
yeah,
agent that can leave because we saw what happened to Punk both times in ROH and
yeah.
in WWE. ROH, they hated him, but in the last moment, he got cheered like crazy.
He
And
he's always wanted that baby face pop, right? So
yeah, and Summer Punk in WWE, that's the thing that turned CM Punk from like a mega heel Nexus leader, straight out society, into probably one of the biggest faces WWE had at the start of the 2010s. So I think Cody is aiming for that Summer Punk moment. It could lead to him turning heel fully, or it could lead to
yeah,
maybe him staying a face. But I think that's Cody's play here.
yeah, me too. I think so. That's where Cody does. I think Cody is definitely gonna stay with AEW. I don't see him going anywhere. For
One, oh,
me, I think he stays heel. I I think he doesn't do anything. I think they start teasing it a little bit more, especially like you said with the Summer of Punk moment. He he wanted to be his dad ever since he was a little kid. So for him, it would be kind of a Dusty Rhodes pop for him because that's what he's always pined for, and
yeah,
that might give him that. So
yeah.
with with
Oh,
him doing that, do you see him keeping the TNT title?
that's what I was going to talk about. I know people brought up the fact that he's TNT champion, and how could they let the TNT champion's talent contract run out? I don't think the plan was for Cody Rhodes to still be TNT champion. I think the plan was for Sammy to beat Cody at Battle of the Belts. And obviously, COVID happened and nothing you can do about that.
Yeah,
But I wouldn't be surprised if they have an interim title Sammy versus Cody match for the actual TNT champion sometime
yeah,
in the next 2 weeks, maybe at Beach Break.
yeah. Beach Break seems to be the match for that the show for Cody and Sammy to
Yeah.
unify those TNT titles. And
I think Sammy wins. I'm not sure how this whole new news of Cody being a free agent will play into this, but I think as of right now, Sammy will win that unification match.
yeah, so let's go over of a little bit more on the AEW Dynamite. show. Let's so tomorrow night we're gonna be having Sean Spears going up against one of my favorites, CM Punk. So how do you see that go?
Well, CM Punk is also one of my favorites, but I think Punk is not going to lose. The only question is how much interference or how big of a role MJF and Wardlow play. Because this could be as simple as MJF hitting CM Punk with a steel chair. But it also could be like last week we want MJF wanted Punk to feel pain. He could have ended this at any time, but he wanted Punk to feel pain. And that caused Waldo to eventually lose the match. So I won't be surprised if MJF plays a huge role in this match, but also won't be surprised if MJF waits till the end after Punk wins, and that's when he interferes.
Yeah.
So who knows with MJF?
Yeah, you can really never know what's gonna happen with MJF. He's quite the character, but yeah, and we were talking a little bit about what happened last week with Britt and Cole and the best friends. So where do you see that go? Do you see Cole and Britt going over, or like maybe Orange and Chris have a little
This match is tough for me
thing
to
going on?
call because I think that this is leading to Britt versus Chris in a title match again.
Yeah,
But
that's what I see too.
yeah, but I'm not. But they're not going to have Cole eat the pin. He has not been pinned or submitted since he got here, and I don't think a mixed tag is the place for him to beat the pin. But I'm also not the biggest fan of them pinning the champions, no matter what company it is.
Yeah.
So I'm very interested to see what happens here. I think Orange Cassidy eats the pin, but Chris makes enough of
Yeah.
an impression on Britt that
So Britt,
she gets the title shot.
yeah, that's kind of how I see that too. It it always seems to have Orange Cassidy take the pin for the best friends, especially in trios action and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But
I think they need to. I'm not saying they should do it anytime soon, but I think they eventually need to have a plan for Cole to take his first loss. So
yeah,
every time a Cole match happens, we don't think, okay, he's not going to take the pin, so who else is going to take the pin? Because I love Cole and I think he should be pushed, but eventually he will need to.
He'll need to lose, yeah.
Yeah.
Which brings me to my next point, and it's kind of involved with this, with next week being beach break. Do you see Johnny Gargano coming in and having be Adam Cole's first loss?
I think it's possible Johnny Gargano comes in, but Johnny's one of the situations where I don't want to speculate until after the kids come, after his kid's been born. Because like if he comes in, I'll be happy, but like I'll start speculating after. Because as of everything we know about Johnny Gargano says he's been looking forward to being a father for a while and he wants to be in his kid's life.
Yeah.
So I won't be comfortable speculating about, oh, Johnny Gargano is going to be here until after all that happens. So it could happen, but I'm not going to like say with yes, he is going to be. What about you?
Yeah, I see Johnny coming in as well. Maybe at beach break. I'm still on the fence about it. Like you said, he said on his Twitch channel that he wanted to take a break and like take care of his kid for a little while and especially like just get in the routine of being a dad and I see Johnny coming in maybe just to introduce himself and then leave so he can get that big pop once he comes back.
Yeah. But I don't think, like we talked about before, like I don't think if TK came up Johnny, I was like, hey, I want to offer you a deal. And Johnny said, okay, but I can't start until like this date. I don't think TK is going to be like, nope, never mind. I'm not going to sign you. If TK wants Johnny, like that's all that is. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes.
Yeah, me too. And this this whole thing with Gargano is really interesting to see what happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, and also tonight there's gonna be a match between Sting and Darby versus the Acclaimed. Last week on Rampage, they had a promo rap with the Acclaim and Stang, and
Hmm.
which was pretty cool. And so, do you, what do you see happen there? Do you see Max and Anthony taking the pin here?
Oh, Sting and Darby go over. But there are other circumstances because we saw Andrade get involved a couple weeks ago. And then, like,
Yeah.
he also said that he wanted to buy Darby, which is weird. But I don't think
Yeah.
Andrade knows how any of this stuff
I
works.
thought that was weird too.
Yeah.
When
And then we saw Andrade tease an alliance with Hardy. So I'm
yeah,
interested to see if this comes into play with maybe Private Party getting involved in
maybe
that match. I could see that happening. Or maybe Andrade and Hardy team up for a while.
yeah, I could see that as well. Private Party coming in and maybe like causing a DQ or something with Matt would
Yeah,
like
that
maybe
could work.
start building towards maybe like a trios match or something at
Yeah.
Revolution, which
Oh,
brings me to my next point here with the Acclaimed here. What did you think of that rap thing?
I I'm not the biggest fan of Caster's raps, but I thought that was really well done. I thought that was really good. But I did want
Yeah,
to ask you, not since we were talking about Sting, but Arn Anderson and Tully are on opposite sides this week because Brock Anderson and Lee Johnson are taking on FDR.
yeah, I was just
And
about to bring that up actually.
yeah, so we saw Sting, we saw Tully call out Sting before. So
Yeah,
do you think after this match that we eventually get to FDR versus Sting and Darby again, or do you think that now it's Tully and On are going to be on two opposite sides heading to a collision course? Like, what do you think comes out of this match?
I think they're just gonna keep teasing the Horseman stuff. Like I think it'll be a little thing where it's like, well, little Horseman tease here, a Horseman tease there. Like they're not gonna flat out say, "Oh, Ric Flair's coming," because
And
obviously he won't.
yeah, no, I don't think. I think maybe no. I think On and Tully are like the original Horsemen. As far as the original Horsemen go, I think they're the only ones that are going to be in AEW.
Yeah, I see that as well. Just and we can keep talking about Arn because he's still in the Nightmare family with Cody.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming him and Brandy are going to be out there this week, and
Yes.
they're going to be cheering on Cody's decision,
Yes. So
which
with
is
yeah, we'll see
which
because that would mean On's playing double duty, right? Because he said he's going to be in his son's
yeah,
corner. Yeah.
which is going to be interesting. And speaking of interesting, one of the things I've been looking forward to is the rise of Serena Deeb in AEW. She's one of the most underrated women in AEW, and she has been killing it right now. And tomorrow she'll be facing one of my favorite dark wrestlers, Sky Blue. So how do you see that going? In like,
Oh, so Serena's gonna win. I love Sky Blue too, but Serena's gonna win. I'm interested in
yeah,
what happens next because Shida's in
yeah, because
Japan.
Sheeta's going back in Japan. That's
Yeah,
right.
Shida's in Japan for like a month, I think, because of the quarantine time.
Yeah,
So I'm interested in what they have to do next. I was gonna say maybe
maybe bringing Kairi Sane in.
I think Kairi Sane's done, or at least she has like some kind of deal with WWE, which like will prevent her for a little while. I think I think Kairi just wants to be in Japan,
Yeah,
but
maybe
like
she goes back to Stardom or something. I don't
yeah,
know.
I was gonna say have Thunder Rosa, but they need to finish this feud between Thunder Rosa and Mercedes Martinez, which should
Yeah,
be a really good match though. But like I think maybe Tay would be who.
Ty Conti. Yeah,
Yes.
I that's another one that I really like. Ty Conti, especially like she's been just on fire this
Yeah.
past year.
Yeah.
The matches she had with Britt Baker is she had a great match on the Rampage pre-show with Santana Garrett.
Yeah. She's
And
been really good. In whatever position they put her in, she's like managed to make it work.
yeah, I agree 100%. And Ty Conti is one of these girls where you can put her in any spot on the card and she's gonna thrive.
Yeah.
And so we'll see what happens with that. Maybe they do a little something with Demon Sky Blue and Ty J.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Because Ty J would like with Blue, they were the three girls that came out to check on Sheeta
Yeah,
last week. Yeah. What do you think happens with the Dark Order? Because I assume they'll have some position to play now.
yeah. I think they might have a segment or something.
Yeah.
Like maybe a pre-tape or something.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. Maybe they revamp that they reignite really I should say that the feud with Danielson,
Yeah.
because
But
I think they have a few more guys that Danielson should run into.
Vance and maybe
Yeah.
Reynolds. But do you think Archer is going to make his official challenge tonight? Because we saw last week he returned and attacked Hangman.
Yeah. So I think so too. Like I think they're gonna keep Hangman away from John Moxley for at least till Double or Nothing. I don't see him doing anything outside of the of getting into Moxley or anything until Double or Nothing, like I said. So we can bring up a little bit of what's been going on in WWE.
Yeah.
Like we've been talking a little bit about the Royal Rumble and stuff.
Yeah.
This past week, Ollie put out a tweet saying that he wanted to leave WWE.
Mm-hmm.
So, for me, I sincerely hope he gets that release granted and really just maybe goes to Impact or someplace like that where I know he's going to be able to be that superhero that he said in the tweet that he wanted to. And of course I know you, Dan, you've really wanted to see that happen as well.
Yeah, like you and me have talked about this, like because I'm Pakistani Muslim too, and I've loved wrestling since 2009, and I haven't, there's been a lot of wrestlers I've loved. Don't get me wrong, but there hasn't been anyone to really connect with me because again, I'm Pakistani Muslim. So when I found out there was Pakistani Indian Muslim, who was coming to the WWE, that was probably one of the moments where I was like the most excited about wrestling. And then like I still am, like I love Mustafa Ali, like he's one of my favorites, like he will always be no matter where he goes. So I really hope he gets a release, and I really hope he can do whatever he wants, because I really feel like he has made a positive impact on the community, which is one of the things he set out to do, and he said to himself multiple times that he's going to make a positive impact on the community.
Yeah, Mustafa Ali is one of these guys where you can bring him into any promotion and he'll thrive.
Yeah.
He's one of these guys where he started in the Cruiserweight Classic and had great matches there.
Yeah.
So with that being said, he wasn't booked as well afterwards. He was brought up on the main roster in 2019 and he really didn't do much. Like
he didn't find its footing. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was just saying about how like Mustafa Ali was brought up on the main roster in 2019 and he wasn't booked as well.
Yeah.
And even with the Retribution stuff, like I felt like the Retribution stuff was just poorly done. And maybe it shouldn't even been done in the first place.
Yeah. He just never found his footing through no fault of his own, because he could like do a lot of things, but they could never really find one avenue where like he could stick. Like him and Kofi should have been a WrestleMania match.
Yeah,
that
Kofi Mania, that's where I saw it come in as well, because I was one of these guys that loved like the original cruiserweights and really put those guys over.
Yeah.
Like especially guys like him and Buddy Matthews and Cedric Alexander. Those three guys especially, they were my favorites. And you look at a guy like him and you go, well, he's one of these guys who could really be a future world champion somewhere. And maybe even like I was saying with Impact, maybe go to the X division like right away and really move up to Trey Miguel and really maybe get in a feud with him immediately
Yeah.
if he gets that release granted.
Yeah. I think they'll give him the release just because of all the budget cuts that they've had
Yeah,
recently.
budget cuts.
It'll look bad if they don't. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if he wants to wrestle. Maybe he wants to do the movies, like he said. He wanted to audition for Blade. So it'll be
Yeah,
interesting to see where he goes because he does have a lot of options. Like
yeah,
he's charismatic, he can talk, he has a good look. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes.
yeah. He's really like a super wrestler. Like for me, when it came to the cruiserweights, he, like I was saying, him and Buddy Matthews, those two guys can really go out there and have a great match. Him and Cedric Alexander had such an amazing match at WrestleMania 34 that John Cena like was in the crowd for it and like loved it.
Yeah. It's good that you brought up Cedric because I was saying I don't think him and Cedric was supposed to get like actual full-time job because if you remember,
Yeah,
one of the guys got injured, and that's how Ali got into the Cruiserweight Classic. And then in the
that's right.
first round, he was eliminated by Lance Dorade. And also, we all know Cedric's story that everyone in the audience was chanting "Sign Cedric" until Triple H came out, put
Yeah,
a arm around him, and then walked him to the back. So it'll be interesting to see how all that stuff unfolds.
yeah. And speaking of Cedric, the Hurt Business was back together for a short while there on Monday Night Raw, and now they're split up again for the second time in a row. Like, I don't know what WWE's trying to do here.
I
I know they love having Brock as WWE champion, but you can only do that so much. You have a guy like Brock, which of course Robert O'Neill, he's a big Brock guy as we know, but it just Brock lately he even has impressed me. Like I wasn't a big Brock guy when he first came back. When he first came back, I was like, okay, it's Brock. He came back from the UFC. Okay, that's great. That's fine. He he's a great UFC fighter. He's a great professional wrestler. I just didn't know he could talk until I found the stuff he was doing with Eddie and Chavo and
yeah.
some of those guys in the early 2000s SmackDown with 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 his original time with Paul Heyman.
Yeah.
So with with that being said, you were talking about Bobby and Brock Lesnar being a dream match, and,
Yes.
and obviously it's obviously a dream match now because they're both MMA guys. They're both
Yeah.
great professional wrestlers as well. So what do you see that going long, and do you see it being like a big fight feel?
Yeah, like I said, like Bobby Lashley has been one of my favorite wrestlers since I started watching back in 2009. Even though the stuff he wasn't doing wasn't so great back in TNA,
Yeah,
although but yeah, he was one of my favorites, and I know that's the match he's wanted for a long time because Brock Lesnar, like for every MMA fighter that's a wrestler too, Brock Lesnar is kind of the not prototype but archetype. Like he's the guy that had made in both worlds. Like he came in 2002.
yeah,
He had a really quick run to the top. He became the youngest undisputed champion, or now known as the WWE champion. And then he had like everything made. Then he went to the UFC and he did pretty well for himself, I would say.
yeah. I
Yeah.
would say that too. That especially one fight that comes to mind is the one with Alistair Overeem.
Yeah.
That that's probably his most iconic fight over there, and another UFC guy, a really MMA guy, in Bobby Lashley, who
Yeah.
went to I believe Bellator.
Bellator, yeah.
He had a few fights there
Yeah, he
and
did.
had some success there, but overall he was mostly focusing on TNA.
Yeah, TNA Impact, and
which
which is good for him. Like
yeah,
because his WWE run, whatever you think of it, it maybe didn't go the way anyone anybody really envisioned because he was in ECW, and like while the premise of ECW might have been nice, what actually
yeah,
happened in WWE ECW wasn't really that well received. So that's a different story. But like he had to do something to make him stand out. And I think he found that in 2014 when he returned to TNA and aligned himself with MVP. And I think that run, the 2014
yeah,
to 2018 run in TNA Impact with MVP, really is the blueprint for how you should treat Bobby Lashley.
yeah.
Which,
I agree 100%, and it's literally what the Hurt Business became in WWE once he came back,
yeah,
and really the Hurt Business during the pandemic era, I think personally really stole the show. Besides the women, I think the Hurt Business came in at a perfect time, especially in WWE, because they were at a time where they weren't doing much,
yeah,
especially Cedric and Shelton.
yeah,
And having those guys get over and just make a name for Cedric and Bobby, really Bobby and Shelton in particular, those two guys, they've been in WWE for a long time, but they weren't as booked well. And same with Cedric, he was there for what, 4 or 5 years
yeah.
up until that point.
2016, he came in same time as
Yeah,
Ali in the Cruiserweight class. One thing that I that might not be touched on in the storyline, because as you said, they seem to have no plans of the Hurt Business getting back together, is that Shelton and Brock know each other from the university days.
yeah,
Yeah, so they're friends from back then. And I think the one thing that the Hurt Business had always working against them in this run, and like ever since like Bobby lost the title to Big E, is that WWE seems to put them together when it's not feasible
oh
but helpful.
yeah,
Like they wanted Bobby versus Big E in the steel cage. So they were like,
yeah,
hey, we get interference from these two guys, and then we do that. Then when Bobby was gone that 1 week, they would like, okay, we can have the Hurt Business back together so they could fight KO. And now we need Bobby to get heat on him. We need to get some heat on Bobby because Brock just beat him in a promo battle. How do we do that?
yeah,
We have him beat up two guys at once. So I think WWE has the mindset that they can, because they know the fans love the Hurt Business.
yeah,
So they can put the Hurt Business back together when they need to and then like just break them up.
yeah. Just to get a little cheap pop, that's all.
Yeah.
And of course, we talk also about what's been happening right now with GCW, and what GCW has done, especially in the past couple of years, it has really impressed me, and especially has brought some really good stuff, especially when it comes to Matt Cardona. Matt Cardona for me was the most improved wrestler besides Ty Conti. I think the match with Effie was probably match of the year for GCW. To me, GCW was one of these promotions where it was just another indie promotion before the pandemic. And when the pandemic hit, they were one of the few guys that were still able to have shows and have shows that were getting viewed by everyone. And bringing a guy in like Matt Cardona, who we all know was severely underrated in WWE.
He was a WWE guy through and through before they released him.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. Until the release happened, as we know now, and
Yeah, he wasn't safe.
yeah, it and bringing a guy like him in was really cool. So, do you see him keep doing this, trying to be this ultra WWE guy in a GCW world? I guess you can say. Uh,
I think
so,
thing Cardona had going for him. There are a lot of guys that get released from WWE that maybe haven't worked the indies, with the few exceptions like Myers and Heath, who are doing really good for themselves in Impact, is that he hustled. Like he hustled in WWE with the Z to Long Island story. And so he knew like what he had to do was to get his name out there in as many different ways as he can. And we see that now. He's like in Impact. He's now in NWA. He has all these storylines in GCW. So he really like knew I need to get my name out there, and there are all these different avenues. And I think someone said it after he debuted in NWA, that he turned getting fired from WWE and turned it into three title shots in three different companies in the span of 20 months.
Yeah,
So
which I think is absolutely astonishing to me
yeah,
because just just like you said, a year and a half before, he was in WWE barely doing anything. He was maybe on main event once or twice a week, or
a month.
even once or twice a month
Yeah.
for that matter. Like he besides the split with Myers on WWE TV, he wasn't really doing anything. So for him and Myers to both get released from WWE, they both went. Myers went to Impact immediately and has had a somewhat of a resurgence, especially doing the learning tree stuff and just doing that, which we'll get into that later.
Yeah.
But
Also, sorry, to answer your question about the Ultra WWE guy, I think that's Cardona's lane in GCW, because we know a guy like Moxley. He was in WWE for a while. He got
yeah,
released, he came back, and he was loved because he was John Moxley first and foremost. So the fans at GCW know him as this like indie guy, hardcore guy. While Cardona, he never really had the indie run that like Moxley or whoever else had. So he's known as the WWE guy. So for him, the work was okay, I need to get people to stop thinking me of Zack Ryder and think of me as Matt Cardona, because Zack Ryder, for all we loved about him, he was
yeah,
more like a promo guy. Like he got you excited for his matches with like how he phrased things
yeah.
and how he like did things. He had good
It
matches
was
too.
more expressive. He
Yeah.
was more right here. He wasn't like the typical work rate guy that you would think of a guy in in the indies.
Yeah. Yeah. So like he had to find a way to get people to stop thinking of Zack Ryder. Um, but instead he leaned into it. He was just like, yeah, I'm a
Yeah,
former WWE guy. What are you gonna do about it? You're just mad you couldn't make it. So he kind of leaned into it,
yeah,
while a guy like John Moxley is just like, yeah, no, I'm done. Although he doesn't really say anything negative too much anymore. But like John
yeah,
Moxley is John Moxley, while Matt Cardona is still thought of Zack Ryder. So those are two
yeah.
different guys, and like both of them, like Moxley is now one of the top baby faces.
In
Even he got
AEW.
cheered against Gage. Like Nick Gage
Yeah,
is the hero to GCW, some GCW fans, because he is their guy. So
yeah.
it's really interesting to
GCW
see.
has really made Nick Gage like their guy,
Yeah, and
and
Nick Gage is awesome. So
yeah,
I don't watch
Nick,
deathmatch wrestling, but Nick Gage is awesome.
I'm one of these guys that would watch a Nick Gage match simply because of Nick Gage is one of these guys where you
Yeah,
watch his entrance and you know he's one of the most beloved people in GCW.
yeah.
And another guy like him is Effie.
Oh,
And
Effie.
that match with Effie and that match with Nick Gage, those are two matches for me when it comes to Matt Cardona that really re,
Yeah,
so yeah. So we can talk about Effie and what he's who they're bringing in as one of these big stars, and and to me, bringing in Jeff Jarrett as this mysterious character is very interesting to me because you look at a guy like him and you go, "That's not a mysterious guy. That's just Jeff Jarrett." Jeff Jarrett is one of these guys where you look at and you go, he is so interesting, and you can really put little things in there when it comes to his GCW run in, and especially with, like I said, this new version of My World.
Yeah, because like Jarrett's kind of like Cardona, except in a completely opposite way, because like he's this old school WWE guy who has done a lot in like mainstream wrestling, WWE, WCW, and TNA or Impact, because he founded the company. And again, you have this dynamic where like Effie is Effie, but he's like been indie since he started
Yeah,
wrestling. So you have this dynamic of like the main guy, not the main guy, but the guy
yeah,
that's
the
been
the
in these
top
main
guy.
promotions. Yeah, the guy that's been in these main promotions, and then you have Effie, the indie star. And I think places like GCW really lean into those dynamics.
Yeah, it to me, looking at a guy like Effie working with Jeff Jarrett, I think it's a perfectly great start for Jeff. It's what I was trying to say, and really looking at a guy like Jeff Jarrett, if you want to build him to eventually maybe be GCW champion, to me that's where that's what you do.
Yeah. One thing that we kind of touched on, but we didn't really when we talked about GCW and all these guys, is that they're a perfect starting position for
Yeah,
guys recently released. Like Blake Christian, who I love because of his matches with like Darius Martin and his matches in
yeah,
other small promotions before he even starting with the WWE. He got released, and I think the same day, GCW put out like this advertising saying Blake Christian is coming home. And like we
yeah.
just found out Mascara Dorado, who was the form who like
Lindsay,
yeah,
yeah,
Lindsay is coming to GCW soon. We have Speedball Mike Bailey, who he even
yeah.
though he signed with
Speedball
Impact,
is one of my favorite wrestlers as well.
yeah, Speedball Mike Bailey, who I'm so happy can finally wrestle in the US because like I've seen his matches in other
Yeah,
places and I'm glad other people are going to experience them. He showed up at GCW a little while ago and he wrestled
yeah,
Tony Deppen in a match that I thought was
yeah,
pretty good.
yeah. Me too. I love that match as well, and even he really showed himself that he can really go into a match and really show out. That the 4-way at countdown to Hard to Kill,
Oh,
I thought was a perfect way to debut him in Impact, and, and really it'll bring him to the X division where those guys they can really go. As you know, bringing a guy like Speedball is really going to put eyes on the
uh,
show for sure.
yeah, and all those guys you said were good. Like Ace Austin, and Chris Bay are two of my favorite. Laredo Kid is pretty good.
Yeah,
So all those four guys can go, and yeah, it was a perfect debut because of the speed of those guys. Like everything seemed good because like all those guys can really move in the ring, and
yeah,
their moves look good too. So yeah, it was a perfect debut for him. I would
yeah,
say.
and and I think bringing a guy like Speedball, like I was saying, no, that's really going to put eyes on the screen specifically because you look at a guy like Speedball, like Chris Bay, those guys they can really go.
Yeah, and on the
Eh,
other end of the spectrum, you have a guy like Josh Alexander who is like who is amazing. Like I love Josh Alexander, and
yeah,
like he's a technical guy. While you also have like Sawyer Fulton and W Morrissey, who has really
yeah,
reinvented himself in Impact, and then a guy like Jonah who's coming in and squashing these dudes. So you have a
yeah,
lot mix of styles. And speaking of Josh Alexander, I think he's gonna start nailing down forbidden doors at this point because this is getting ridiculous.
yeah.
Like first
And
Suzuki, then Jonah, who is staying, Jonah is staying, and now
yeah,
Charlie Haas.
which the Charlie Haas debut for me was surprising simply because we haven't seen Charlie technically really since that short Ring of Honor run in like
Yeah,
2005 or whatever
yeah, I
with
think
Shelton.
yeah, I because I remember a couple months ago I saw a video where Charlie Haas was like, "Yeah, I'm getting back into in-ring shape and like I'm ready for my return." but I don't think any of us saw it coming to this degree of him getting on TV so quickly.
Yeah,
And
me too. I thought it was just gonna be, oh, I'm gonna do a short little maybe 3 4 month indie run, and then I'm
yeah,
gonna go back to my little hole.
yeah, and also he put out a note basically saying that I'm gonna hit the ground running in 2022 his um
I,
after his debut. He was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna hit the ground running in 2022. Promoters email me, and then we'll see."
so once his concussion like recovers and stuff, I see him maybe doing a few things in GCW.
Yeah, I
Frankly, looking at a guy like him, he
yeah
would be a perfect fit there, especially when you're looking at a guy like Speedball, like we were saying earlier. Those two guys could go either in Impact or GCW and really just have great matches.
yeah. I hope he makes a few more appearances in Impact because he's Charlie Haas. Like no matter how
Yeah,
much, I think he can still go. Like I saw some videos of his match with Alexander, but even if he can't, like the knowledge he brings, and like we was
yeah,
discussing this about up air about guys like Joe and William Regal, who even William Regal probably can't go, but like he's probably one of the smartest people to have around your wrestling promotion. And Joe, even if he can only go like what one match every 5 months or whatever,
yeah,
like he still has a mind for this business that I think few possess. So any Charlie Haas, William Regal, or Samoa Joe, all of them would be a credit to any wrestling promotion.
yeah. I agree 100%. Those three guys are some of the most knowledgeable people in wrestling. You look at a guy like Samoa Joe, where him, Christopher Daniels, and AJ Styles, they had one of the more iconic TNA matches at Unbreakable 2005. And you look where he is now. Like we were saying off air about the whole thing with him leaving WWE and how that turned out, and him maybe going back to Impact
Yeah,
and just have one last run there. And
yeah, we'll see. Samoa Joe is the guy that's interesting because as a like we've talked about this before, he's knowledgeable and he's smart. So he's definitely saved his money. So if he wants to like never be seen again in wrestling,
yeah,
like he has the means to do that. So
yeah,
we'll see what happens.
yeah, we'll see what happens. And we'll kind of go a little bit more towards the Western side with certain things when it comes to Japanese wrestling
Yeah.
on out east.
Yeah,
And,
because
and we can get into that now and really just start like maybe start about talking about your thoughts on the first two nights of Wrestle Kingdom.
I won't call myself an avid watcher of New Japan recently, just with how things have shaped up. But I did watch
Yeah.
the first two nights of Wrestle
What did
King.
you think of it?
I think I'm higher on Show and Yo than other people because I know a lot of people were like, yeah, this sweet. But I like the match. Like I think Show and Yo are two of the good, not best, but like this, they're good junior heavyweights to have in like a division like New Japan. So
Yeah.
I like the match. But my favorite moment from night one, well, second favorite, but we'll get to my other favorite moment, was
Yeah.
Shibata's back.
Yeah, I
And
thought that was really cool as well. And especially like my first thought was Kyle O'Reilly. Because Kyle O'Reilly was one of these guys who went to Japan and had a match with
yes,
Shibata, and and I think he even tagged with them if I remember correctly.
I can talk all day long about Kyle O'Reilly and Shibata because like I'm a huge Kyle O'Reilly fan. And one of my gripes with his booking in WWE was that you had this dude that was a killer who had done like who had actual background in like these things, and like you were not portraying him as such. And the main thing I would always go back to is he walked into Japan and Shibata's home and fought him for 18 minutes before the ref was
Yeah,
like, nope, you're done. You can't fight anymore. So, and they did not portray him like that in NXT, but that's a topic for another
yeah,
day.
I,
But yeah, Shibata and Kalo Ali, I hope get a third match. And now we have Danielson. We have a guy
yeah.
like Danielson, and we also have like these good technical wrestlers that have come out, like Daniel
Like Daniel
Garcia,
Garcia. Yeah,
Lee Moriarty, and like Josh Alexander.
Yeah.
But I'm interested in how much he can wrestle because I know New Japan was like, "Yep, this is just catch wrestling, no strikes," and Shibata was like, "No, I'm gonna do strikes, and you can just
Yeah.
hit me with whatever penalties you want later, but I'm gonna have strikes, and we're gonna do my match
He
my
he
way."
just wants he just wants to end his career on his own terms, kind of like what we were saying off air about Edge and Christian Cage.
Yeah, I think the thing, but these like we have guys that retire because of like concussion issues, neck issues, or whatever. Like they're not
Yeah.
medically capable, and then as soon as they're medically capable, they like hit the ground running. And I think an important part of that is, I think for wrestlers who have been doing this for a while, you want to go out on your own terms.
Yeah.
Like that's important to them. Like Edge, if
Yeah.
Edge had stayed retired after the neck injury, I don't think anyone could have denied like he was one of the best. He was an actual
Yeah.
Hall of Famer.
Yeah. He went in the Hall of Fame a year after he retired. That
Yeah,
that that to me goes to show how much
they
he
never do
he
that.
he
They
was
never,
good.
yeah, they never do that. I think the standard waiting period is 5 years. Or I mean,
Yeah.
not waiting period, but but
Yeah.
yeah, they never do that. So that was unbelievable. And also Christian Cage, like if he retired, like we won't be saying he's an all-time great, but he was still one of the best for a
Yeah.
short period of time to do it. But
Like
those
he
guys,
was Hall of Fame worthy, like he was announced for
yeah,
his AEW debut.
but those guys, they, um, I don't think they got the endings they wanted because, like Christian Cage, um, he had a concussion in a number one contender match that he won, but he never wrestled again. So I think not being able to write your own ending gnaws at these guys, which is why
Yeah.
they want to like Corey Graves. Corey Graves might come back, and he's been
Yeah.
talking about it openly. Like he's like, I kind of want to come back. I kind of want to come back.
And
And now,
he even put a few clips on his Twitter a couple years ago
yeah.
during the pandemic. He was doing a few things. I think it was with Reginald
Oh
actually.
yeah, yeah, him, yeah. And but yeah, you have these guys who are just like, I didn't get to go out on my own terms, so that's why I'm coming back. And I think that's especially true of a guy like Shibata, because
Yeah.
anybody who like has watched Shibata knows he loves this stuff, and to
Yeah.
not be and to
And he
go the
loves to just use his elbow a lot and just
and his counter drop kick.
yeah.
Yeah,
That he really loves to use that strong style that I guess really just made a name for himself and really like put himself as one of these
yeah,
guys in modern New Japan as one
yeah,
of the bigger names.
because he is the wrestler. So but I love that match, and I hope that Shibata has a bunch more matches because I love seeing him. Because
Yeah.
Shibata was actually my introduction to Japanese wrestling. I don't know if I've told you the story before,
Oh
but
no
like
way. That
um
that's awesome.
but it was like during a time period when like I think it was 2016 when he retired. It was during the
Yeah.
time period where like WWE was like WWE and Impact, which were the two major companies I watched at the time.
Yeah.
They weren't like I was losing interest in them pretty much. But then Shibata retired, and I kept hearing that this guy was like really great. So I was like, okay, I'll go on YouTube and I'll find matches. And then Shibata matches led me to Tanahashi, to Okada,
Yeah.
to Minoru Suzuki. And while
Yeah.
I did like kind of fall out of it again, he was the one thing that he was the
That
reason
that
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 I
kept your glue,
started.
right? So
Yeah, I kept, he was the reason I started. So when I heard he was back, I was like, okay, let's go.
yeah, and we can get into a little bit of some of the other matches and we
Yeah.
can maybe talk a little bit about there was an Okada match, right?
Uh, oh yeah, yeah. Okada versus Shingo.
So what did you think about that?
It was a really good match, but the thing is, like, I have my favorites, and Shingo is probably one of those favorites. Like ever since he debuted
Yeah,
in New Japan, I'm just like, this guy's because I don't watch much Dragon Gate. I should, but like I
yeah,
don't. But I was like, yeah, this dude's awesome. I like him. But yeah, but I was really hoping he would win. I knew there was a really small chance he would because like Okada's the guy for New Japan, and like in the time they are now, where they're like kind of not sure because like Western interest because like clap crowds and like no really Western
yeah,
wrestlers coming in, it's kind of dwindled interest. So I figured they would put the title back on Okada. But for the match for what it was good.
Yeah, I felt that too. In just looking at a guy like Okada, who is probably when he retires going to be one of the goats
Oh yeah.
in Japanese wrestling. You look at the matches he had with Kenny. Those three matches were really like highly taught as one of the better matches in his career, especially his post TNA career.
Yeah.
To me, going back to New Japan and doing what he's done over these past few years,
He solidified
he's
himself as a great. Oh, sorry.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
He really solidified himself as one of the greats for sure, and Shingo's another one of these guys who, like you said,
He's amazing.
yeah,
He
and
really
he
came. Yeah.
yeah, even Johnny Gargano has put him over and said he's one of these guys that he wants to wrestle again, and which interests the hell out of me because Johnny Gargano is honestly one of my favorite wrestlers. Like,
That should be a really good match. But
yeah,
I don't want to say he came out of nowhere because everyone knew how good he was. But during the
yeah,
pandemic era, he kind of really carried New Japan. Like
yeah,
he had bangers with whoever you put him against because like he was that type of wrestler.
and I agree 100% as well. Uh, we can maybe talk a little bit on some of the other stuff that has been happening a little bit with the Japanese wrestling scene, and we can start talking about one of your favorite promotions and one of the promotions that I've really started getting into over the past year or so, Pro Wrestling Noah. And
Yeah.
well, of course, we can talk about one one of the one of the stables over there. Of course, like starting with the New Japan, not New Japan, but Pro Wrestling Noah World Champion.
Yeah. Katsuhiko Nakajima, who I only found out about him last year, but he has slowly become my favorite wrestler. And I've said this before, and I think that he had a dark horse, really, really, really outside chance of Wrestler of the Year 2021. Because if you look at his matches, he had a match against Masaki Tamiya in a cage match. I think it was Noah's first cage
Yeah,
match. Hair was his hair. That was really good. And then he had an N1 victory. And for people that
yeah,
don't know Noah, N1 victory is pretty much like the G1. It's like you win it and then you get world title shot, essentially, is the goal. And then he had some really good matches, culminating in a match versus Keno, who was a stablemate, which he won.
yeah,
And then he took that victory and then he beat Naomichi Marufuji, who was the champion, for the title. And
yeah,
then um he had his first title defense against Masato Tanaka, who was the guy that who Nakajima has never beat. Like they fought,
yeah,
I think, 2 times, and Nakajima has not beaten once. He finally beat him in that title match.
yeah,
And then we were talking about Keno, who was a stablemate. Keno is the
yeah.
GHC National Championship, which is, I guess, for people that don't know, it's like the mid card.
It's like their Intercontinental title or
Yes,
their US title,
but they
basically.
care about more. But
Yeah,
but yeah, yeah. So Keno is the national championship, and the Keno pretty much the January 1st show was the Nippon Budokan, which was a big deal.
hmm,
And Keno wanted to main event that show because he thought like we're back at the Nippon Budokan. It's a big deal. Like I want to main
yeah,
event it. I want to prove I'm worthy of carrying Noah into the future. So he challenged Nakajima to a title versus title match. And I thought, and that was a 60-minute draw, which I'm not the biggest fan of because I did stay up all night watching it, but it was
yeah,
really good. Like you could tell they really put everything into it. And then, well, that leads us into 2022. So I'm not going to talk about that more. But yeah, those are some really good
yeah,
matches I thought he had with in 2021. Because then we get into Go
yeah,
Shiozaki and Masaki Tamiya again.
yeah.
And yeah.
We'll get to that maybe next week.
Yeah. What do you think of Nakajima and Noah as far as you watched?
As far as I watched Nakajima and Marufuji. Those two guys have really impressed me, especially Marufuji's stuff with Kenta, which I thought was
The,
thoroughly some of my favorite stuff, especially with the collab they've had recently with New Japan.
that stuff was legendary, though, I
Yeah,
think. Like a lot of people have said it, a lot of wrestlers have said it. 90% of wrestlers have stolen at least one thing from Marufuji or Kenta. Like those two
yeah,
redefined junior heavyweights back in their day. But yeah, and
yeah. Those guys have definitely like really made the junior heavyweight slash X division slash cruiserweight
style.
style of wrestling.
Yeah.
Excuse me, and really have become like one of the more iconic guys. I would say at least in in Japanese wrestling, like in modern times.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
And we can go over a few things here. He's uh new. What was I gonna say? Uh, I
Oh,
think it
New
was
Japan. We could Okada is
yeah,
like the champion because he beat Will Ospreay in a really weird
yeah,
storyline that I didn't completely understand. But Okada's the champion. So I'm excited to see where they go and if they go anywhere new with this because like all due respect to New Japan and Okada, Okada's one of the best. He's been champion quite a few times in New Japan. So I'm
yeah,
interested to see how this reign separates from his other reigns.
yeah. Myself as well. Okada was one of the bigger guys when I first started watching New Japan. Like I came in at the same time that Devitt was walking out of New Japan and coming into WWE. Like I was one of these guys that basically was a Bullet Club kid.
Yeah.
Like I was one of these guys that was throwing up the too sweet and doing all that stuff because I thought that was cool and was the most over thing outside of WWE.
Yeah.
And even speaking of the Bullet Club now, they seem more relevant on the Western side with Impact. I think Impact is really revitalized and really focused on the name brand being a bigger model, I guess.
I think it's because once again the pandemic. Like the pandemic for New Japan has been horrible. They've been hit really hard. So hard that they had to like make a deal with Noah, which we'll get into later at another time.
Yeah,
But I think because like Jay White, Tamatonga, Tangaloa, those are the guys who are in this version of the Bullet Club who are well known, but they like are on the west, like Tangaloa and Tamatonga. They stay in Japan, like they live
yeah,
in. I'm sorry, they stay in Florida. They live in Florida,
yeah,
and they only go out for like months at a time to Japan. So with this pandemic, they've kind of been forced stateside.
yeah,
So to generate new interest, like as you said, like JY came to Impact and made
yeah,
Chris Bay a member. So now we have Chris Bay, who has a T-shirt too, that Finesse Club,
yeah.
which is inspired by Bullet Club. So like they know how to keep themselves into
Relevant
yeah relevant.
and to me personally, Bullet Club during the pandemic, like they didn't really do much.
Yeah,
Tamatonga had the little thing with Doc Gallows when
yeah,
once the Good Brothers came to Impact and had that little tease of, are we doing Elite versus Firing Squad again
yeah. I was
or
gonna
what?
say that Bullet Club has been relevant not for the right reasons because
Yeah,
we like we've talked off air. House of Torture might not be the best idea. I can understand
yeah,
why they did it, like because like Bullet Club was getting too big, so they had this like offshoot,
yeah,
well, not offshoot, but like they had this little subgroup called House of Torture. But at a certain time, you need to like not mix things up because if like something's good, it can like stay good for a
yeah,
while. But I don't think House of Torture is that great, like because like it's formula, follows a
yeah.
formula.
It has the same thing that really made Bullet Club what it is. They didn't change anything. They didn't evolve. They still have the logo that was made after Devitt left.
Yeah.
which I thought was interesting. They didn't do much since the Elite left,
Yeah.
which I thought was kind of a downfall of the Bullet Club for a little while. And
They
like we were
expanded,
saying,
but they didn't like do anything to change themselves.
yeah,
Because the way Devitt is and the way AJ Styles are and the way Omega is, they're three different things. But the way the Bullet
yeah,
Club has, they've all been together, and it's also going. I'm not as down on Evil as a lot of people. I just want to say that right off the bat. I think Evil
yeah,
could be a good wrestler, but Evil, Dick Togo, Sho, and Yujiro Takahashi being in Bullet Club kind of is the is the
yeah,
opposite of what Bullet Club was originally
yeah,
meant to be, which is like we're Gajin, we're here to take over. That was Bullet Club's
yeah.
whole thing.
Their whole thing was to be, hey, look, we're from the States, we're from Canada. Let's go over to Japan and try to take over our promotion over there.
Yeah, so it's weird, but I think
And especially with what Jeff Jarrett was doing it, and
yeah, that was
with
the whole thing.
for that short time that he was there. But
Yeah,
I think we'll get into that in a more specialized episode to Jeff Jarrett.
yeah. I think um New Japan needs to figure out what Bullet Club is, what this has to touch storyline goes to, because if it is like a Bullet Club implosion, where you have like a guy like Evil, or maybe it's Jay White versus Tamatanga, or it's Evil versus one of those two, and you like separate Bullet Club or break it up, then that could work. But they need to figure out what they're
Yeah,
doing.
because really they've been doing this for 8 years now.
Yeah,
You look at this and you go, damn, we haven't done anything that really evolves our stable and really changes it, I guess.
yeah, yeah.
So
Because like a lot of New Japan, I mean, I don't want to say they're getting long in the tooth, but like a lot of New Japan stables have kind of like stayed the same for a while with like minor exceptions. But I think they like need to figure out where this company is headed, not where this company was. And like I can say
yeah,
that about a lot of companies like WWE.
WWE, especially WWE and AEW's women's division in particular, which I think we'll
Yeah,
get
we'll
into
talk about
that
that
in a
later.
yeah, we'll talk into that in another episode. But yeah,
They need to
they've
figure out
been
where they're going. They can't like
yeah,
because I think right now, like I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but like one of my problems with Okada as the champ is that every time something happens in New Japan, whether it's fan interest or injuries or whatever, anything something goes the way New Japan doesn't want to, the
yeah,
immediate reaction is let's put Okada in the spot. Let's put Tanahashi
yeah,
in the spot. And like that well runs dry. Like we can also say this for WWE with their nostalgia acts. But in New Japan, that well is gonna run dry. One day you can't do Okada again. One day you can't have Tanahashi
yeah,
as champion. Kenta's 40 right now. Like,
yeah.
yeah,
You
so
you can only do so much with the guy in his 40s.
yeah, and I love Kenta. Like Kenta is one of my favorites. But
Yeah, me
again,
too.
New Japan needs to start making their young guys feel more like credible threats.
Yeah,
They had Shingo.
even with they I feel like they've been doing that a little bit with New Japan Strong.
Oh
They've been
yeah,
bringing in guys like Gabriel Kidd. They've been bringing in guys
Ren
like Tom
Narita is going to be
Lawler.
great.
They
Ren
they
Narita is going to be great.
yeah,
But you need to like figure. And I have the same problem with Noah. But again, we'll get to that later.
yeah,
But yeah, I think the problem with the wrestling promotion right now is they're kind of stuck on where they were. Well, they need
yeah,
to be a little more focused on where they're going.
yeah. Which I agree 100% with that. Looking at a guy like Gabriel Kidd, like I was saying earlier, he had a great showing against Eddie Kingston.
Yeah.
I thought, and really he's going to be one of these guys where once a once these New Japan Strong guys can start going back over to Japan, he's going to be one of these guys that's going to have great matches against a guy like Shingo or
Yeah.
Shibata.
I'm really interested in seeing what happens when travel opens back up because like we can talk about the forbidden door all day long.
Yeah,
Everyone's talked about the forbidden door, but
every
there's the
podcast
real
has, and
yeah, but there's the real thing to be said about guys like Eddie Kingston, for example, who's talked openly. He loves Japanese wrestling. He loves those guys. About Brian Danielson for the first time in like what 10, 11 years.
Yeah.
Like I've said before, Brian Danielson versus Kazuhika Nakajima has to happen once. I need to
Yeah.
see those two kicking each other once. But yeah, but there's like, and maybe that can revitalize interest in New Japan
Yeah.
if those guys can go over, because a lot of the times it's just guys coming to
And,
America.
and especially like we've talked before we even had the podcast.
Yeah,
We were talking about a guy like CM Punk going to the G1 and what that would look like,
yeah,
which could be cool. He said in his full gear press con, and not even his full gear press conference, in his first press
yeah,
conference with AEW, that if if need be, he
yeah,
can go to the G1 and have those matches. But for now, he'll just be a regular AEW guy,
yeah,
which I think is perfectly fine.
yeah, and also Moxley. We didn't even talk about Mox. Him and Tanahashi have had the seeds planted for a match against those two
Yeah,
for a while. I think when AEW and New Japan started planning those seeds, they thought Extra would be a little more open right
yeah,
now, and it's not. So I think we'll have to wait a little bit, but that match
yeah.
could be really good when it happens.
I think that the next time Tanahashi comes back to New Japan Strong, I think that's what they'll do.
They'll
They'll
have to
bring
have that
him
match.
for an excursion, bring him to AEW, and have those matches with Moxley.
Yeah, that could be really good too.
Yeah, Moxley is one of these guys who, especially now with him coming back, he's going to be one of these guys who they bring in and really, like we've seen in GCW, like we've seen in his past run with New Japan, that they can bring a guy like Moxley in and immediately just have amazing matches.
Yeah. So yeah,
And
it's interesting to see. Like I've been saying for the first 10 minutes, wrestling's future can be really bright. Like you do have young guys, which we'll highlight in another episode.
yeah,
Because like I really want to dive into these guys individually, but you have a lot of young guys that could be really good in the future.
yeah.
So I think it's
Even in AEW, you look at the four pillars.
yeah,
Those four guys, and I can even add a fifth one with Britt in there, which
yeah,
we'll get into the AEW women's division on another episode.
yeah,
But you look at a guy like Sammy Guevara, who right now, as we're recording this, is still the interim TNT champion, and to me, him and Daniel Garcia last week won't be the last time they face, and to me, they have a bright future in the men's division and in the women's division,
yeah,
but the women's division is going to take more time.
yeah. Like you said, the four pillars, but it's funny because like as other people have stated, you can put another four underneath them. You have
Yeah.
Wheeler Yuta, you have Lee Moriarty, Daniel Garcia, you have Lee Johnson, you have Hook. So the future is bright.
You even have a little Brock Anderson in there as well.
Yeah, yeah, like, and not to discredit WWE because like
Yeah,
while it seemed like before WWE was like focused towards the older guy, they do have guys
yeah,
like Braun Baker and Carmelo Hayes, who everyone agrees are two amazing athletes.
yeah. And for me personally, WWE has always done a great job at taking care of the future of the women's division,
Yeah,
and what they've done so far with the NXT women's division has been interesting. Yeah, they have Mandy Rose, who's going into her mid-30s pretty soon, but I having someone like Cora Jade as champion, to me, I think interests me more specifically because
I think that's
WWE's
where they're
always
headed.
done
Yeah,
that, especially with someone like an AJ Lee in the past. They they brought her in, made her a star, and made her a champion immediately.
yeah, yeah. I think
And
that's where they're headed with Cora Jade as champion. But it'll be interesting to see how they get there or what they do.
yeah, I think they're gonna keep like start building the feud, and I think they've already done it with Braun with the NXT title, and I have a feeling they'll do the same thing with the, of course, with Carmelo Hayes. Eh,
Yeah, Carmelo Hayes, I think he's one of the guys they want to rocket to the top.
yeah, and even when you bring in a little guy like a Roddy Strong, who so far with like the 2-3 years he's been there, he was with the was solo doing his own thing, was brought into the Undisputed Era and had fantastic matches with the Undisputed Era as well, and now he's back on his own. And what seems to be what's going to be happening over the next few maybe months or years, depending on where his contract is at right now. I see him moving forward and maybe becoming more like a player coach.
Yeah.
And putting over these guys, and really maybe with what's happening with Walter, we'll see what goes on with that.
Yeah, I was gonna say about Buddy. One thing I do like is they seem to be placing with like new people. Like I love Creed Brothers, I love Ivy Nell, they're awesome.
Yeah,
But I think having Roddy with them brings them an air of credibility
yeah.
that they probably won't have otherwise. And Bivens is
Especially,
awesome.
yeah, Bivens as well. I was gonna say that giant, he he's really one of these guys that can talk. Like he he was originally the manager for Omos,
Yeah,
which
we can talk about
would,
that later.
yeah,
Yeah, we have a lot. But yeah,
yeah,
but
we
but
can,
I was gonna
yeah,
say like I think the stable proves that they kind of want to like focus on the new, but they also want
yeah,
to have like the old help them. Like Champa, Champa
yeah,
is like one of the vets. He was used to put over Braun Baker. Pete Dunne, like everyone loves Pete. Everyone knows Pete's a badass. He was used to put over Tony D, who I think a lot of people think are going to be another big star in NXT's
yeah,
future. Like Roddy laid down for Carmelo Hayes,
yeah,
so you can
which
see
I
the
thought was the right move.
yeah, oh yeah, it was definitely the right move. So you can see the plans being seeded and you can see who WWE wants to push.
Yeah. So with that being said, really, you look at WWE's future, and they they do have a chance to maybe rise back to success if the booking goes well,
Yeah.
which we all know as of late hasn't been that great.
Yeah. But I mean, we'll see. It's a new year. So
Yeah, it could change on a dime, and, and of course, like we were saying earlier about Cody and his direction, which
there's a lot of um unknown variables in this point in the wrestling landscape.
yeah,
So it's I know a lot of people say, oh yeah, this is the best time to be a wrestling fan with all the cooperation, but I think this is an interesting time to be a wrestling fan because
yeah,
we are 99% sure Cody's resigns, but it'll be interesting to see if they do anything with this. Then we have
yeah,
NXT 2.0. We like kind of know where it's headed, but like it's gonna be interesting to see who they
yeah,
push and who they like think, yeah, you're good, but maybe you can like stay in the mid
yeah,
card, maybe you're like that. And like in Japan,
yeah,
like I think we can talk about it later in a more specific episode of Japan,
yeah.
but like does New Japan like rise to the top, become the number one they can do, or does another promotion like Noah, like they like have been slowly building their
Yeah.
portfolio with like these some of the moves they made.
It's the same thing down in Mexico with AAA and CMLL, and
Yeah,
how CMLL has really become, like, I guess, really the WWE of Mexico, and AAA has become uh, really like
yeah,
the AEW or New Japan
yeah,
of
yeah. So it's an
of
interesting time to be a wrestling fan, and we'll see
yeah,
how all this goes. They could, we like Cody Rhodes could come out and be like, "Yeah, nope, I'm resigning." So jokes on
yeah,
you guys, and then like nothing you said matters. But like I think it's going to be an
yeah,
interesting time.
yeah. 2021 was a big year for wrestling, and I have a feeling that 2022 is going to be even bigger.
Agree.
And like we were saying earlier, you there's so many free agents that are available right now.
Yeah.
You look at a guy like Ali, you look at a guy like Gargano, and you go, there's enough space for those two guys and much more. You have a guy like Keith Lee there. You
Yeah.
have a guy
Swerve.
like
Swerve is a big one.
Swerve, yeah. You have girls like Mia Yim and Brianna Brandy.
Yes.
Who
Taya
can
Valkyrie and
Taya
Athena.
as well. There's so many free agents available. It's only a matter of time until some of them come in. I have a feeling Taya is going to AEW. John Morrison, I see him probably going back to Impact. It just same thing with Gargano. I have a feeling Gargano might be going to AEW just because I think there's still stuff that they can tell
Yeah.
with Cole and Gargano.
And the best
And,
friends.
yeah, and there's still stuff they can do with Fork Gun if somehow Rich One comes along in AEW.
Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, like I said before, it's an interesting time to be a wrestling.
Yeah, 100%. You look at these guys and that the landscape of professional wrestling right now, I honestly think is we like have so many options, and not just companies but wrestlers in general. Like Jeff Hardy's going to be available in a couple months. Keith Lee and Mia Yim are going to be available pretty soon as well.
Yeah. So there's a lot of moving pieces. Like no one really no
Yeah,
like you said, we think Taya is going to AEW, but like no one knows where these wrestlers are thinking or what they're doing or what their
yeah.
priorities are, but
We
them.
can only speculate for now.
Yeah. So we'll see. I think February 2nd is when a lot of these guys know complete clause
Yeah,
and that. So I think we'll have our answers pretty soon after that.
yeah. I think so as well. I think you look at a guy like Keith Lee, and I think he could be someone that you can bring into a promotion and go, okay, there's this much time that you can until you're champion,
Yeah.
and here you go, buddy.
Hmm.
Because Keith Lee's one of these guys that you can have go in there and have a great match with anybody.
Yeah, Keith Lee is awesome.
As we saw in NXT 1.0, we saw that he can go. We saw in Evolve as well that he can have great matches. And same thing with Mia Yim. Mia Yim, honestly, to me, is one of the most underrated women in professional wrestling right
Yep.
now.
Yeah. But yeah. So a lot of these guys can have good matches, and they're going to. But it's going to be interesting because like we'll see where companies slot them. Like a lot of them can be main event talent, but like you said, there's going to be a certain amount of months where Keith probably hangs around in mid card, which in AEW that's not that bad. Like he can fight Punk, he can fight Kingston, depending on which
Yeah,
where they have him, Moxley, Danielson.
yeah. There's so many options for all these free agents,
Yeah,
and we'll find out if Ali gets his
is
release granted.
yeah,
We'll hope Johnny Gargano finds a home as well,
yeah,
and really just for all these free agents, they have enough time to sit at home and figure out where they want to go.
yeah.
It's only a matter of time until one of them pops up. It could happen tonight. It could happen next week. We'll find out.
Yes, yes. There should be a fun couple months in wrestling.
Oh, for sure. And especially with what's going on right now with the Hardy family office and what's happening with that. We don't know what their next feud is. We'll see what happens. Maybe they bring in Buddy Matthews.
Uh,
We'll see what happens. Maybe we can talk a little bit about the House of Black,
yeah,
because to me, the House of Black is gonna be interesting, especially how they told the story of Malachi Black, especially like bringing in Brody King and introducing the Kings of the Black Throne, which I thought was a perfect way to set up towards Kings of the Black Throne versus Varsity Blondes, which is going to happen tonight.
Yeah.
Which I have a feeling is going to be a really good match. And I think this is where they introduce Julia Hart into the House of Black.
Can I just say real quick? I love the Excalibur said Kings of the Black Throne because
Oh, yeah, me
that's a
too.
PWG team, and like Excalibur owns that company. So I just love that he got his
Yeah,
like that line
it's
in.
his champions. So,
Yeah. But yeah, like you said, it's gonna be interesting with House of Black and Julie. I think I see this happening two ways, or it could happen both ways.
yeah,
Either Vasi belongs lose a really quick match, or Julie Hart turns. Again, it could happen both ways.
yeah.
But I think
What
one of those two is bound to happen.
I think what happens is I think it comes all together.
Yeah.
It happens a really quick match where how Kings of the Black Throne have most of the offense,
Hmm.
and they maybe do a couple Varsity Blondes spots, but they lose, and she they have Julia Hart take the eye patch off and have all the face paint.
Oh, yeah. Malachi
And,
really needs to see a doctor about that.
yeah,
Yeah. But one
and,
other thing is that we saw Park vignette last week.
yeah.
So I don't know when
Which
he's going to return. But that vignette was awesome. But
yeah,
yeah, I don't know when
me
he's going to
too.
return.
I I have a feeling he might join. I saw on Twitter that people were talking about Pac being in the House of Black, which
Yeah.
kind of interests me as well. So we don't know where that's gonna go. We maybe they bring in
I
Julia
think
Hart.
he's in the
Maybe they bring in Pac.
yeah, it's interesting though because like the reason people think he's in House of Black, the same with Julia, is because he had a misfit on him. So
Yeah,
we'll see if that actually has an effect. Because
yeah,
I could see Park fighting House of Black and then turning against
immediately.
yeah, and then turning against Penta. Because
Yeah,
like we saw like a couple weeks ago, um when Malachi was doing his thing, that Penta and Phoenix came out to stop him. So it'll
yeah,
be interesting to see where they go from there, especially once Phoenix gets healthy. That's the key issue,
yeah.
that Phoenix gets healthy and they do all this.
Uh, I have a feeling that knowing how Malachi is a really thoughtful guy when it comes to stories, I'm sure he has some type of lore for the mists
Yeah,
and
definitely.
and the eventual reveals of the new members of House of Black.
Yeah, definitely. The House of Black is one storyline I'm interested in just because of how much
Yeah,
Malachi thinks of all this stuff.
me too. And Malachi Black is one of these guys who is smart as hell.
Yeah.
He can go in there and just tell a story, even in a pre-tape with the pre-tapes he's done. The
Yeah, he
pre-tapes he's
can.
done has been amazing, and just really he's really like reinvigorated himself since leaving WWE. The way he left WWE wasn't that great.
That was interesting. But I was gonna say, you mentioned the pre-tapes. Do you remember when he lost to Cody and how he didn't say wins and losses don't matter, but he
Yeah,
kind of dismissed it by saying, I'm the ultimate winner because now everyone that you love, the fans, have
yeah,
turned against you. So technically, you got the 1, 2, 3, but I won in the
yeah.
end. He didn't say like wins and losses don't matter. He didn't say like,
He
yeah, who
just
cares?
flat out said, "I'm the babyface in the story, and
He
you're
just flat
not."
out said that, yeah, what's more important, winning a match or winning or
Fans.
losing what you think you need, which is the
Yeah,
cause of the people.
yeah. Which we'll get to that in another episode.
Yes, Cody's arc could probably spawn multiple episodes
Yeah,
alone.
which that might be like a specific episode in itself where we look at his career from WWE on.
Yeah.
which that we'll find a day to do that. But
Yes.
really just thinking about the landscape of professional wrestling now, it there's opportunities for everybody.
Yeah.
You look at a guy like Jake Atlas, who unfortunately got injured last week.
Mhm. The
Once
week
he
before.
recovers, I have a feeling he's going to be one of the most notable guys for Dark Elevation.
I think he has a good spot in the mid card because, like
Yeah,
AEW, one of the things they were good at for a while was they shuffle guys in and out. So if he
yeah,
shuffled into the mid card, I think he has a really good chance. Like he could be like maybe a Sammy type,
yeah.
where
Where
he's
he can have matches on Dynamite and Rampage, but still have some stuff on Dark and Elevation.
yeah, yeah. So the way AEW is formatted, there's left a lot of stuff open. Like with WWE, you can kind of like tell like these are the
Yeah,
main event guys, these are the mid carders, these are the guys they don't care about. But AEW has kind of left stuff open ended in a
yeah.
way, and like that,
They really made it subjective, I guess,
yeah.
is the way to
And
really
I've
explain it.
like talked to you about this, but I'll bring Impact as an example. The way
Yeah,
Impact's mid card is, they really like they can fluctuate easily, and nothing feels out of place. Like we were talking about the countdown to Impact show. If on the
yeah.
next pay per view, any of those guys, Ace, Chris, Laredo Kid,
Speedball.
Speedball, they're in like the third to last match, they won't feel out of place because
Yeah,
Impact's mid card is really wide open. So I think that's
yeah,
a strength that both these companies have.
yeah. I agree. Looking at those guys you just named, and especially the way you explain the format, I agree 100%. Where we we've said multiple times that WWE is one of these companies where they have a format that's so predictable. Where it's the same thing every week.
Yeah.
So you kind of have an inch of what's going to happen, but not really. But you still, when you go to see AEW, you know what you're going to get, but not really, because
It's
it
yeah, we kind of know
anything.
where everything will be, but we don't know like how it's going to play out.
Yeah, because the difference between WWE and AEW and Impact is AEW can change in an instant. They they can come up with different lores and stuff. Meanwhile, in WWE, they just write it on that day and that's it. That's all.
Yeah, yeah, you can kind of like tell like Tony has planned stuff, some stuff. Now, I don't want to say all of it
Yeah,
because obviously, but you can tell like there's some stuff Tony has planned out, and there's
yeah,
other stuff that he like might like. Oh, we need someone injured. Someone's injured. We need to fill like time. Okay, send these guys out. So it's a mix. While WWE it really seems like half the time they like plan it like the day of or the day before, and there's like no concrete plans to
yeah,
move some stuff. Like Jimmy should have had a singles match with Roman, like an
yeah,
actual singles match for the title. But instead, like I guess because plans changed, they just kind of have Jimmy be like, okay, yeah, I'm on Roman's side now.
yeah.
But yeah,
Which for me, it's it gets kind of repetitive at times
yeah,
because you have these fantastic talents, but it's the same 20-minute promos. It's this the the same storyline over and over again. And plus they have matches on house shows too. So they don't really continue the feud on the house show. So it doesn't really like continue, it doesn't have a specific flow. It's just over and over again, which
yeah,
I think that's the gripe that a lot of people have with WWE right now,
yeah.
is how repetitive it is and how annoying it is, and hopefully it'll change.
Yeah, like I don't want to spend too much time bagging on WWE because they
Yeah,
do good things. Like
yeah,
Bobby Lashley's title reign, WWE title reign was amazing. I think that was
yeah.
perfectly booked. I
I
think the
agree
way
100%.
they've had Braun. Tony and Carmelo's ascent to the top has been good,
Yeah,
but there are some issues they need to work on, and we will see if they do. We'll
yeah.
see what happens there.
It like we were saying, it's only a matter of time because things can change in an instant,
Yeah,
and especially when you look at a guy like Roman Reigns, he's had the title now for over 2 years
yeah.
because he had that match in the pandemic against Braun.
2020. Oh
Yeah,
wait,
that's what I'm saying.
yeah. It's been like a year and a half
Yeah,
because, like, again, Roman's title reign could be a whole episode because of like it's kind of been the best thing on SmackDown most weeks.
yeah,
Like, which is another problem. Again, I don't want to bag on WWE,
yeah,
but that's another problem they have where they have like one, two guys, and like John Cena. This was John Cena for many, many years. They were like,
yeah,
people are tuning in to see John Cena. As long as we get that right, we can mess up the rest of the show.
yeah,
And then after he left, there was kind of like a dull period where people like there was really nothing
yeah.
that got them excited.
Really, the only other person that people liked was Brian Danielson.
Yeah.
Like
And Dean
Danielson is one of,
Ambrose. Dean Ambrose.
yeah, Moxley as well.
Yeah.
Uh, Danielson and Moxley were standouts in from especially on Moxley's side with the Shield split and how that panned out,
Yeah.
which we we should definitely talk about that on a future episode
Yeah.
because that whole thing is interesting and especially where those three ended up and even Danielson's career, his from NXT on career is even like more interesting in the sense of like you have a guy like Danielson who what is your work rate guy, but
WWE's handling of Danielson, like especially in the beginning, like
yeah,
after he came back, was interesting because I think
yeah,
they kind of like figured out where to put him, but they also kind of didn't know where to put him.
yeah,
So like the way they positioned him on the card was different because they did give him the heel run, like where he
yeah,
was like, no, no, no. They did give him the heel run. So that was good.
yeah,
I like that because like Danielson as a heel is like pretty good. Danielson can play the heel. He played the heel well in like ROH when he needed to, or
yeah,
Noah when he had those like excursions there.
yeah, 100%. And you look at a guy like Danielson and you go, there's only so much you could do in the title scene
Yeah,
with the whole thing with the Intercontinental Championship and him keep getting injured and
yeah,
eventually retiring, which, like I said, we're going to talk about this on another episode,
yeah.
which is going to definitely be an interesting one.
Yeah, I will say I wasn't a big fan of how they positioned him and the Miz in the NXT days,
Yeah.
but him and Miz were probably one of the best feud in like the mid 2010s.
Oh yeah, 100%.
That promo that Miz cut on Talking Smack was pretty good, and I don't even I wasn't the biggest fan of Miz at that point, but I think it was pretty good.
Oh yeah, 100%. So you'll look at a guy like the Miz, like we were saying, like he's one of these guys where you can go and just talk about how he's one of the more underrated guys on in the ring. Like he
Yeah,
can have great matches. Like he for even though he had a concussion at WrestleMania 27, he was still able to have a great match with Cena.
yeah. I think one thing about wrestling and wrestling fans is that for majority of them, they will see you maybe like 1 year or 2 years, and then immediately slot you in
Yeah,
to that position for life. Like they will believe that's how good you are. Because like we've
yeah,
seen a lot of guys improve. Like we mentioned him briefly, but Tangaloa. Like
yeah,
I love Tangaloa even back in the teenage days, but a lot of people didn't. And I feel like that's how they choose to remember him, or maybe like the beginning
yeah,
of his because like his G1 this year or
yeah,
2021 was great, but because a lot of people had this idea of him as like a good tag team wrestler, bad
yeah,
singles wrestler, I don't think a lot of people gave him the fair shake, and like that's true for
Yeah,
the Miz too. Like the Miz has improved, like
yeah,
but because people still think of him as the guy from like back in 2010 who was just the talker but not a good work rate guy, I think people
yeah,
still expect that of him.
100%. Tongaloa, like he didn't get for me personally. I don't think he had enough time in WWE
Hmm.
to show that he can go.
Yeah.
He was paired up with Hunico for a hot second, had a couple matches on SmackDown, had a couple matches on NXT, and really didn't do much. After that, he left to go to TNA, which again had two matches.
Him and TNA was good, but the problem was his first stable was with Drew Galloway and Eli Drake, now known as Drew
That's right.
McIntyre and LA Knight. So I think in that trio, because you had Drew Galloway, who was like everyone knew as Drew McIntyre, who was the really
Yeah,
good like match guy. Then you had Eli Drake, LA Knight, who was
who's a great
amazing
talker.
promo. Yeah, so he kind of like went off like into the shadows, which was still no fault of his own. He was just paired with two really good guys.
Yeah, and I think really putting him with his cousin or his brother
Yeah.
Tamatonga, I think that was the right move to go, and really they were able to be, I guess, like a
Yeah, I think before
like
people got sick of them because like Bullet Club has all had this problem where people are like, we've seen you for 8 years, we know what you can do.
yeah,
But I think they were one of the best tag teams in the world at one point.
yeah,
Yeah.
100%. That I think they were definitely up there with the Usos,
Yeah.
especially around that time that they started working in New Japan.
Yeah, they were
The
one of the best tag teams.
Yeah, when God started, those two guys and the Usos for me was a big dream match, which
Still is
might
for me.
it still is for a lot of people, but I don't see that happening
Nope.
anymore. I see Tama just being a full on New Japan guy for the rest of his
Yeah,
career.
they're not going. I don't think they're going to the WWE. But also
No,
that rematch is interesting because of the ties that the both of those families have.
yeah,
So yeah, a lot of family relationships in
yeah.
wrestling. Um, oh, but also speaking of AEW, we were talking about Archer. Where do you think Scorpio Sky and Ethan Page go? Because like
I
we saw
think
Archer come back and he teased he was going to
yeah.
attack Lambert and then he attacked Page.
What I think is they're gonna do a handicap match to build up to the Page Archer match, where it's the Men of the Year against Lance Archer, and maybe at the end of the match they have American Top Team come back and get involved, and we'll have Dan Lambert just talk and just run his mouth like he does.
Yeah.
And but for me, I totally see that happening. I definitely see eventually Scorpio Sky becoming the TNT champion,
Yeah.
because he still has that brass ring. If you remember, he
Yeah.
he won that brass ring during the 2020 Double or Nothing.
2021. Yeah.
2021. That's right. I forgot.
Yeah, now
It's been
it
a
all
rough
blended together.
year.
It all blended together. But yeah, I was saying they've teased it so much that you can't not have Scorpio Sky be TNT champion.
Yeah,
I'm just wondering if they'll do that with Lambert or after, because like Lambert's not going to stick
it,
around forever, hopefully. But
yeah,
yeah, it'll be interesting because like they've teased it so much, but they've never like pulled the trigger on Scorpio, even
yeah,
though he's hung around the rankings. Like he's
yeah.
been in the rankings for I think 3 months at this point, but
At
they've
least,
never
yeah,
like pulled the trigger. So I'm interested to see if they actually do pull the trigger or if it's just like he's just one of those guys that just hangs around but never wins a belt.
yeah. 100%. And it to me, Dan Lambert, like, with having two guys who can talk like Scorp and Ethan, is not the right move. I think putting him with Dos Santos and and Arlovsky, I think it is the much better way.
Yeah.
Because
Oh, mhm.
because not just because they're actual American top team members, but also because for me personally, like I I I love that stuff. Like
Hmm.
that that really like having that MMA pro wrestling crossover, like it's intriguing.
I'm curious to see if they come back because I'm not sure either one of them really. I think maybe Dos Santos just wanted to see how pro wrestling was, and
Yeah.
maybe Andre now that he's retired one. But I don't know if they have actual goals of like actually being pro wrestlers for the long term, or if this is just something
We'll see what happens.
Lambert had because like he's a pro wrestling fan.
Yeah.
But speaking
Uh,
of tag teams, Proud and Powerful,
yeah.
like Santana is doing a mini like indie run because he's facing
Yeah.
Speedball at Warrior Wrestling, and then he's on
Yeah.
April 4th. He's
He's
gonna
gonna do
face
the terminus
Gresham.
stuff,
Yeah,
which I'm
but
very excited about that.
like PMP have been one of my favorite tag teams since they were LAX and Impact.
Hmm.
So I feel they need they need the tag titles. I don't know
Yeah,
how soon
I
because
agree
like
100%. I think they're the next tag champs.
yeah,
Uh, they they gotta get away from the inner circle.
they do.
Same thing with Sammy.
Yeah.
Sammy and PNP have to get away from the inner circle somehow.
Yeah, because like I've talked to you about this before and we'll talk about it later. At the time, the inner circle was good because the inner circle was used. CJ had a lot of like name value. Chris Jericho, he had a lot of name value at the time. AEW was also kind of formed off his back. Kind of, he was like the first
Yeah,
major guy that was like, I'm standing here, which was a big deal because like before that, everyone was like, he's loyal to Vince McMahon. He's never gonna sign for another wrestling promotion in the US. So when he
yeah,
signed, that was a big deal. So then they had the stable, and like Sammy Guevara, he was new to wrestling television.
yeah,
Like and in back then it was not that crowded, but it was still kind of crowded that Santana and Ortiz needed something big to like
yeah,
sink their teeth in. So at the time, Inner Circle was good, but it's kind of overstayed its welcome in a way.
yeah,
Because like we can talk about
100%.
Sammy Guevara as TNT champion and what happened. But the big
Yeah,
thing is that most of his storylines after a while were tied to the
wasn't
Inner
even
Circle.
involved with the inner circle.
Yeah, because like the Ethan Page
Yeah,
thing came because of the Inner Circle, and then like there
yeah,
was kind of a weird gap where it was just like open challenges and whatnot, but he never really had like a good storyline to like make the
yeah,
TNT champion his. Like Brody Lee, he was TNT champion for a month,
yeah,
for like a month or two, but he still managed to make the title feel like it was his. Cody,
yeah,
Miro, Darby, say what you want about Cody, but they all elevated the title. Sammy never really got the opportunity to.
yeah. I agree 100%. You look at a guy like Sammy Guevara, and you look at a fantastic tag team like Pride and Powerful. To me, those those two guys and Sammy are gonna be like the big stars in AEW.
Yeah.
For me, you look at a guy like like Sammy, who has so much potential, even to be a future AEW World Champion. And to me, I see either him or Jungle Boy being the first AEW World Champion.
You mean the next? I
Yeah,
mean,
that uh,
eventually.
yeah, an eventual AEW World Champion.
Yeah. I think MJF is going to be the first of the four pillars to be champion.
Yeah,
I could be wrong. It could be. I think he's going to be the one to end Hangman's title reign at Double or Nothing or All Out, one of those two.
yeah,
But we'll see. Like again, like we've been talking about, like the booking in AEW is such that you never really know
yeah,
what's going to happen until like maybe a month before it happens.
yeah. It's really slow burn storytelling
Yeah.
where they have seeds planted throughout the years, and eventually it'll pop back up, and there you go.
Because if
It
you remember, in 2019, the first Diamond ring, it was MJF versus Page, and MJF won that match.
That's right. So they might pull that back up if they feud eventually, which I have a feeling it will happen at some point.
Yeah,
We don't know
definitely.
exactly yet.
Yeah.
So really, it's an interesting time to be a professional wrestling fan, and if really just loving the sport. And you look at a guy like an MJF, like a Sammy Guevara, hell, even Adam Cole. I see Adam Cole being one of these next four AEW World Champions. I because Cole is
You forget how
always,
young Cole is, though,
yeah,
because he's
Cole
been.
Cole is still under 30. He's he still has a chance to go in there and be AEW World Champion, and it's just so cool.
He's 32. I think he was born in 89. But yeah, because he's been on TV so long and he's so good,
Yeah,
you kind of forget that he is one of those like younger guys.
younger guys. Yeah,
Yeah. So yeah, and I think he's definitely going to get a title reign sometime.
yeah. I totally see that. I think Tony kind of hinted it during the press conference at Full Gear,
Yeah.
but he's certainly one of these guys that Tony's looking at and going, okay, we have Adam Cole, we have all these guys that we can look at and be
I,
like,
yeah. I
they
think
have a
as
bright future in this company.
I think as it progresses, I don't think we're going to see many more really long title reigns like we've seen in next four. Because when you think of it, there's so many guys that you could see maybe getting like a month or two, like Punk. If Punk ever
Yeah,
wins the title, it's not going to be that long. It might be like 2 months or 3 months before he drops it. But
yeah,
yeah, but it'll be interesting. A Punk CM Punk AEW title reign will be interesting.
yeah, 100%. You look at a guy like Adam Cole, who has said multiple times that if MJF said one more time about Britt, he's gonna come in there and
Smack
just,
him.
yeah,
But MJF has like gone off the bit side of this feud with Punk, to be fair.
yeah. That was that's kind of been the story for MJF with CM Punk, is throwing low hanging fruit,
Yeah.
which
He's better
it
than that. I think he's better.
yeah, he's such a great talker that I don't think he really needs to talk like that at all. Like
Yeah.
again, he's one of these guys who really knows what he's doing, and Tony has a lot of trust in him to go out there and tell a story, and like, without having people say you got this, you got that.
Yeah, because like there's a lot of those guys in AEW that like you can trust to like go out, do promos, do matches, and there's not a lot of management needed.
Yeah, 100%. It's going to be an interesting time.
Yeah,
If We'll
2022
see.
should be interesting just because I think it'll like really help set where the future of this business is going.
Yeah, 100%. It's going to be interesting. But that does it for this episode of the podcast. Dan, tell them where they can find you.
I'm on Twitter at DJ Wrestling Fan. I should be getting a blog to for my wrestling content in word form soon, but that's not officially yet. But as of now, just follow me on Twitter at DJ Wrestling Fan.
All right, I'm at Sam Dup Wrestle. That's Sam DUP Wrestle, and I have my own YouTube channel. It's my name, and that does it for this week's podcast. I'm Sam. That's Dan. See ya.